Today we are going to be ranking every single defender primary weapon in Rainbow Six Siege so you guys know which weapons you need to be using and which ones to be avoiding in Year 9 Season 1. Without further ado, let's introduce you to the tier list. Once again, we have the same categories of S tier, reserved for the best of the best weapons, A tier, a great overall weapon, B tier, gets the job done, C tier has its drawbacks, those specific things that are just holding the weapon back, and then finally D tier, which is reserved for weapons you need to be avoiding in Year 9. So without further ado, if you guys go on to enjoy, leave a like, subscribe. If you missed the attacker's side, I'll leave it linked in the description. And let's kick things off with the MP5 SD. So this is the MP5 suppressed version that comes equipped on Echo. Overall, it's just a great weapon, really, isn't it? I mean, if you didn't have to have a suppressor and you could opt for like a muzzle brake or extended barrel, maybe it would be a slightly better weapon, but then it would just be the MP5. And for me, my personal playstyle, I don't really use Echo all that often. He doesn't really suit the playstyle that I usually go for, so I don't really have too much experience with this weapon either. However, moving on over to the P90, it is a great weapon overall. It's got great fire rate, not that bad recoil pattern. The only real downside is that if you're not hitting headshots with it, it can kind of feel like a pea shooter, so some gunfights you might actually end up losing if they're using a weapon with higher damage than you, or if they hit a headshot before you manage to hit, say, 5 body shots. On top of that, this also comes equipped on Doc, Rook, and Solace, and Doc and Rook have access to the MP5, which is just a better overall weapon, so I'm going to put it in great weapon overall, but if you want to put it in gets the job done, then I can see why you'd want to put it in B tier as well. Moving on over then to the K1A. Now, this SMG is only available on Vigil, and in my opinion it might actually be one of my favorite weapons in the entire game of Siege, and it's probably the redeeming factor about Vigil right now. Other than the fact that he basically hard counters Deimos and he's overpicked right now, he's not really that great of an operator, but this AR/SMG, I'm not actually 100% sure what it is definitely the best of the best. I love using this thing. It's got decent fire rate, good magazine size, good damage output, not lots of recoil, and overall it's just a great weapon. The only thing it's missing is the magnified optics, which you just can't get on it anymore. Moving on over then to the 9mm C1. This is the SMG that is found on Frost. Now normally I would put this probably somewhere in B tier, right? It gets the job done, it's got slow fire rate, the damage ain't that great, but with Year 9 Season 1 and ACOGs returning to a lot of operators, Frost has actually gained access to the 2.5 scope, and on this weapon, where it has literally zero recoil, it can be a headshot machine, and you can engage in some very long range gunfights with this thing and come out on top. So I personally would put it in S tier, but once again, because of the fire rate, I'm gonna have to put it in C tier because it does definitely have its drawbacks, but overall it's a very hit or miss weapon with certain people. But if you don't play Frost a lot, try use her with the ACOG, and trust me, you're going to love using it. Moving on over then to the MX4 Storm. This is Alibi's SMG. Insane fire rate, pretty manageable recoil overall. The only downside, once again, is that the damage output isn't there, but where the fire rate is so goddamn good, it definitely makes up for that. If this weapon in the future comes equipped on a stronger defensive or even an attacking operator, I think this thing could be absolutely insane. Joining these two weapons in S tier is definitely going to be the T5 SMG. This is probably my #1 favorite SMG in Rainbow Six Siege right now. It comes equipped on Legion and on Oryx, and on Legion specifically, this thing is an absolute killing machine, especially with so many people playing shield operators with the recent shield rework. So this weapon on Legion as well, it's just a great weapon. Good fire rate, very low recoil. The damage once again isn't there, but as it is for most SMGs, it's not really a high damage output weapon, but the fire rate definitely makes up for that. Overall, I just love using this thing. It's arguably the best SMG in the game, and I love using it. Moving on then, we have the UMP. Now the UMP is just trying to be everything that the 9mm C1 actually is. I think the one downside of the UMP is the fact that it has a slow fire rate. I think it does slightly worse damage, and I don't think it's just as good in terms of recoil either. So I'm just going to put it in B tier, gets the job done. It does have access to the ACOG though, so I do want to put it in A tier because it is a great weapon on specific maps and stuff like that. But you got to keep in mind the damage ain't great, the fire rate ain't great. The only real redeeming factor here is that it does have an ACOG. Next up then, we have Maestro's Alda. Now I'm someone who does not play Maestro. I think he might actually be be one of my least played defenders in Rainbow Six Siege of all time, but I do know for a fact that his LMG is absolutely insane. When this thing used to have ACOG back in the day, it was so broken. It doesn't have it right now, and if it ever does get it back, it'll be even better, but even without ACOG, it is still a very strong weapon. Next up then, we have the Orge 3, which comes equipped on Kaid, and it's an okay weapon. I'm going to put it in just B tier though. It gets the job done. I think the reason why I personally have to use this weapon so often is because it comes equipped on Kaid, who's such a strong defender in terms of his gadget. The Scorpion Evo, however, on Ella, another one of those weapons that's very, very strong, especially in the right hands. Very fast fry rate, so you can hit those headshots very, very easily. Good magazine size, decent damage as well. Doesn't have any magnified optics, but you don't really need it on it. And I feel like if the Scorpion did have ACOG, it'd be the best gun in the game. So overall, I can understand why, but I'm going to put it in S tier. Next up then, we have the M12, which is probably the only SMG looking at this lineup that's going into D tier. Slow fire rate, mid damage. Overall, it's just not a great option. I think when you're using Kavira, which is the only operator that has this weapon, by the way, this weapon really isn't that good. You're probably going to opt to use the pistol more often, probably because you can kill people faster with the pistol. So just use the pistol, it's way stronger. Use the fucking shotgun instead, because you can open up rotates and stuff and use it at close range engagements. So I personally would use the shotgun and pistol combo on Kavira. I would avoid the M12. FMG9 then, a great overall weapon, high fire rate, manageable recoil, comes equipped on Nook on attack as well, but obviously Smoke on defense. And when you're using Smoke, he has the better option of just the shotgun anyway, so I can understand why you'd put it in A tier or S tier, but me personally, I don't play too much Smoke either, and when I do, I'm running the shotgun. So this is just a great overall weapon. It's there if you want to use it, but it's okay. The MP5K then, now this one comes equipped on Mute, which I would once again run a shotgun over it, but it's definitely got to go in S tier, because on Wamai, you can get ACOG on this thing, and oh my god, probably one of the best combos for Year 9 Season 1. Instead of running Jaeger, run Wamai with the MP5K ACOG, and trust me, your KD's going to go up because it is such a good weapon. MP7 though, definitely joining those other weapons up in S tier. Those are like my favourite weapons to use in Rainbow Six Siege on defense, other than Maestro's Alda. As I said, I don't really use that one too much. But the MP7 also has the added benefit of having some of the best iron sights in the game, and as you guys know, in Year 9 and moving forward with Rainbow Six Siege, if you're running an iron sights, you're going to have even faster aim down sight speed. So if you combine the MP7 iron sights with laser sight, you can just run and gun like an absolute menace, and obviously it comes equipped on Bandit and Zero. Oh, and Fenrir as well, which is another one of the strongest operators in the game right now until he gets a nerf in Year 9 Season 2. Next up then, we have the P10 Roni. This comes equipped on obviously Mozzie, and it also comes equipped on Aruni as well. But on Aruni, I like running the DMR instead personally, but the P10 Roni can be absolutely clinical and deadly in the right hands. Now, it doesn't have the 1.5 times scope anymore. Thank God, that thing was so goddamn broken, but it's definitely a strong SMG, and the only real downside to it is that it has a tiny magazine. So I'm going to put it in C tier because it definitely does have its drawbacks. Kind of similar to the C1, that one has like very slow rate of fire. This one has a very small magazine capacity, but if you're good and you know about these things and you can still use the weapon to its full capabilities alongside those drawbacks, they can still be extremely strong in the right hands. Moving on over then to the 416 carbine, I really hoped going into this season that it would get ACOG again. Currently doesn't, and I don't see why. I mean, it's an okay weapon overall. I think it does go into B tier, maybe an A tier. Overall, the magazine is pretty average. I mean, the damage is pretty average, recoil pretty average. It's just the most average weapon in the game, to be honest. So in my opinion, it goes at the top end of B tier. I think if it got a slight buff, because it has been getting nerfs and nerfs and nerfs over the years, it would once again go up into A tier. But right now, especially with all the other operators and all the other weapons in the game getting ACOG and stuff like that, I just don't think the 416C carbine is just worth bringing right now. Next up then, we have the Orge 2. This is obviously the other option you get when playing Wamai. I would opt for the MP5K with ACOG, but if you want to run this, it's an okay weapon as well. It gets the job done. Obviously, bringing an assault rifle on defense is decent because you've got that added range, but overall, you're probably just better off running the MP5K and trying to hit a headshot. Next up then we have the Vector, which is another weapon that has to go in S tier, especially Goyo this season, because Goyo gets the ACOG on the Vector and it's the most insane combo I've ever seen. I don't know what Ubisoft were thinking with that, but it also comes equipped on Mirror. This thing has the fastest fire rate in Rainbow Six Siege, I believe. That and like the SMG-12 of the highest fire rates. If you can manage that, it's absolutely insane. MP5, a great overall weapon. Doc and Rook obviously get the ACOG on it as well. So does Malusi now I'm thinking about it. Overall, if you want to put it in S tier, I can completely understand. All of these weapons in S tier are great options to be bringing right now. And now that I'm looking at it, the K1A probably does not deserve to be in S tier alongside those other weapons. I'm tempted to bring the Scorpion Evo down as well, but I do want to keep it up there because in the right hands, it can still be very, very strong. Next up then, we have the 919 VSN. Personally, I love this SMG. I would put it in S tier myself, but now I'm thinking about it, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not as good of an SMG. I'm once again going to put it at the top end of A tier. There's not a single thing wrong with this SMG, right? But these SMGs above it just have faster fire rates, more manageable recoil and stuff like that. Now, the 990 VSN is not a bad weapon at all, but it doesn't quite compete with the rest of the weapons, even though, in my opinion, I would probably rather use the VSN over like the MX Storm, but overall the MX Storm is probably better than it. You see what I mean? Either way, moving on, we have the Commando 9. Now this is another great option. I believe this is classed as an assault rifle on defense. Obviously this only comes equipped on Mozzie right now. It's a great option to be bringing, a great overall weapon. But once again, you're probably better off bringing like the P10 Roni if you're good with it. If you're not good with the P10 Roni, it's a great substitute, you know what I mean? And once again, we have the MPX. Now the MPX is such a good SMG in Rainbow Six Siege. It probably has the least amount of recoil out of all of these weapons. So in the right hands, you can just hit headshots so goddamn easily, but it doesn't have the 1.5 on Warden anymore. So no more magnified optics for it. It does come equipped on Warden and Valkyrie. Valkyrie is probably a very strong operator. I'm tempted to put this in A tier, but I think I would anger too many people if I didn't put it in S tier. So I think this is my finished tier list. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree anywhere? Let me know down in the comments. I think there's a lot of weapons missing off this list, especially shotguns and stuff like that. But with that being said, guys, it has been it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.